Welcome to Agency Bytes, a podcast for agency owners, hosted by agency veteran and coach Steve Guberman. Agency Bytes is a podcast focused on delivering actionable agency information from agency experts in about 25 minutes. Why 25 minutes? Because who has the attention span for much more these days? And you can squeeze in a listen between meetings with time for a bathroom break or coffee refill before your next meeting.
Welcome to Agency Bytes. I'm your host, Steve Guberman from Agency Outsight, where I help agency owners build the business of their dreams. This week on Agency Bytes, I'm joined by Dorien Morin-van. She's a content strategist with over 15 years of experience helping brands grow through smart, sustainable marketing. She's a certified social media manager and agile marketer, and she works with teams on how to use AI in marketing responsibly and effectively. She hosts the Strategy Talks video podcast, speaks internationally, and is known for turning organic content and emerging tech into measurable results. And if you've seen her on stage or online, you probably remember the signature orange glasses. Dorien, great to have you on the show today, but you're wearing the wrong glasses. Darn.
I know, and I'm just looking going, I pulled the wrong glasses out. I usually always wear red ones, but orange ones, but I have blue ones. So, oh well, this time I'm just going to go with what I have on.
Blue is on brand also. It's all good. Well, it's great to see you. Thank you for joining me today. What is going on in your world? How was your 2025?
2025 was interesting. I think that's the word I'd like to use. You and I were just talking in the green room, and a lot of us marketers have kind of experienced the same thing. None of us were talking about it during the year, but now that the year is ended, we kind of have this collective sigh of relief. God, thank God it's over. Q1, 2, and 3 were pretty rough. I think everybody doubled down on AI, meaning that a lot of companies decided to go all in on AI and actually let go some of their team members, let go some of their strategies, and let go some of their common sense and use AI to, replace people. And from what I've seen, and I think a lot of, people have seen this too, Q4, at the end of Q3, they probably got some reporting that stated and showed that the numbers weren't really up to par. So Q4 was much better for me. I got a bunch of new clients, new inquiries, lots of leads of people who wanted to get ready for 2026 and was serious about content marketing again. So I'm very excited for this coming year. So 2025 was kind of meh. I think we had to go through that to kind of prove why we still need humans in the mix of marketing, very much so. And I'm very excited to be on the other end of that and now be into 2026.
Yeah, I'm all for the humans on this side of the team. Give your kind of backstory of like what you're doing, how you got into what you're doing, some of the things that you've kind of learned along the way. Let's dig into that stuff about running your own freelance endeavor.
Sure. Well, I started at age 40. My youngest one started kindergarten, and everybody else, all the mothers were crying, leaving their last one or their first one. And I was like, I'm skipping out of here. I got home that day and I'm like, I have 7 hours a day and I don't know what to do with. He was the youngest of 4, a stay-at-home mom for a lot of years. And so that was in 2010. And there was a lot of buzz about social media. I wasn't necessarily very interested. But my husband said, can you just figure out Twitter? He had his own business. So I did that and then took an online course on how to become a social media manager. And I literally hung my flag out on LinkedIn and said, I'm a social media manager. Now, the timing was perfect. Very few people were doing social media management. People were using social media at that time for personal use, kind of like where we are in that AI age or where we were in 2025. They were using AI for personal use, for personal gain. But that's the same what happened in 2010, 2011, where people were using social media to connect with people, but not necessarily to use it for business, but they were curious about it. So I became a Facebook page manager and kind of led especially in the area where I was living in South Carolina, a lot of local companies into the land of the social media. I was connecting the offline and the online for them. Yep. And then about 3 years in, met somebody from a different state and started working with an agency as a white labeler, like doing their content, and realized that I was getting paid more through the agency, even though they were getting a cut. So that was kind of like a business aha moment. I was a community manager after that. I started working for a bunch of different companies all over the US. And the circle came around when I worked for the company who I trained with. They had an online course to become a social media manager, and I became their community manager and content manager for a couple of years. So that was really great. It was wonderful to work with that team. And that kind of launched me into social media strategy, because they had a bunch of courses. So I took social media strategist course and really started thinking about the big picture. And that has led me into content strategy. So now I'm for example, an inside marketer for an agency, and I'm in charge of all their content strategy for the coming year. And that includes everything from newsletters to live shows to webinars to blogs to all of that, coming up with the strategy and then implementing that along with, project managers and content writers. So it's really exciting to kind of move through all of those phases. And it's good for me to have seen all of those roles, because I really know what it entails to be a social media manager, to be a video editor, to do all of those pieces. So I'm very excited of where this is going and where I'm headed.
Love that. So inside at an agency doing their marketing, not their clients' marketing.
Yeah.
That's not often like the role that you hear. Most agencies are not investing in that. They're trying to figure out themselves. They're going to, the founder is like, I'll take lead on the strategy, and then we'll get like an intern to do it, or everybody will share it, and then nothing gets done. So what size agency is this that is
it's pretty big. There's about 25 to 30 people working for it. So it's pretty big. Okay. And yeah, I applaud them very much so. I think it's a brilliant move. The pieces of content, what we've laid out for 2026 is amazing. And I'm very excited to push that forward to get all of that done. So I spent the last 2 months of 2025 putting the strategy together and laying out all of the SOPs and all the templates and everything. And we're on a roll. We've got blogs approved. We're going. Newsletters, our templates are going up, and yeah, we're implementing all of that. So it's very exciting to see that. And if you're a marketing agency and you don't have all of this, you do this for other people, but you don't do this for yourself. Mm-hmm. That was my motto for 2025. When work was a little bit light and when we were kind of wondering what's going on with AI, I have a friend who has this motto, and I took her motto. I am going to be my own best client. So I really put Morin Media, my company, as my best client. Every week I spent more time on Morin Media than any of my other clients, which meant that, my live show became a podcast, and that had been a podcast, but now I'm a serious podcaster, and I invested time in my website and putting content out. I'm constantly testing stuff. Even though we know we're supposed to do this, all of us in agencies get really bogged down in doing the things and not looking at the big picture. And I had that time to do that. And I think when you're an agency and you make yourself your own best client, that is going to benefit you in a whole host of different things. And so if you take anything away from this talk that we're having today, do that. And that takes money, that takes time, It takes budget, all of that. But I'm very excited to see where we're heading with this, because I know we're going to do great things.
I love it. Yeah. Again, just the fact that they're making the investment, whether it's time or bringing somebody else in, making the investment in their own marketing. Most shops don't do it. And then they're like, why are we getting no business? Why are we only referral based? Like, you have to market like you do your clients. And I also say the ones that say, oh, treat our own website or our own marketing like a client, they typically still push that to the bottom of the priority list when they get very busy. So it's got to be an immovable client mindset, right? It can't get pushed off. So it's the shoemaker's kid. So that's great that they're doing that. What are some of the things that you're seeing that brands were shifting into from an AI standpoint in 25 that they're kind of like regretting? Like, what were some of those activities that you see agencies taking back control of now?
So in the beginning of 2025, I saw a lot of people talking about, video and AI was big, and people making avatars and creating courses and all kinds of videos with their avatar. And what happens is, if you've done any of this, you know how this works. You upload a couple of videos of yourself, and then the avatar is literally wearing the same clothes every time and looks the same way, because that's what an avatar is. And even though it's a clone of you and it sounds pretty good, it's fake. People know it's fake. And it got a little bit of traction, and then everybody was like, yeah, we're not doing that anymore. So I'm glad that is gone. I think using video for marketing and AI video for marketing is great. Use AI video for B-roll, use it for point of view videos, use it for, just fantasy videos. You don't have to, but trying to recreate a person, we're not there yet. I don't know if we'll get there, but we're not there. So I saw a lot of people kind of walk that back, which I'm really glad to have seen that. So that's one thing that they were doing. And the other one was people were just producing a lot of content with AI and not thinking about the quality, not going deep enough. And I think the more we're learning about GEO and about, writing for both AI and humans, I think that people started to realize that the way they were blogging before, which was for SEO and maybe for people, now we have to really add writing for the AI, LLMs that are scanning your website. So you need to have a new approach to how you're writing and how you're structuring your blog articles, and what's the intent? Do you want the AI bots, or do you really want people to read it and take action? Maybe read a blog article and then subscribe to your Substack, right? So you really have to have that strategy in place on how to use AI. And if you're just only using it just to create more and more content, and that's where that word in the second half of 2025, AI slop, that became the word of the, I would give it the word of the year in marketing, AI slop. Everybody was calling it that. And that's what happened. People realized that they can create a lot more content, and very few people were concerned about what the content looked like and what it actually going to move the needle in business for anybody. So those are kind of the things that I saw that I was like,
Yeah. The video part is interesting. I agree. Like, B-roll or kind of walkthrough videos or whatever. But people, we were seeing actors literally create themselves to be hired out digitally by brands. Not only is it creepy, I just think there's an ethical, devaluation of, if I see an actor, and I don't remember which actors in particular, but if I see an actor saying, you can't hire me for $1 million, you can hire my digital self for $500,000. That's just disgusting. And I'm like, I don't think there's going to be brand loyalty to the brands that are doing that from consumers. They don't want it. Coke got eviscerated for their Super Bowl ad, or their Christmas ad this year, for doing it all in AI.
Yeah. So, well, I think the other part to that is, you're talking about the ethical part and, the brand, whether people would believe the brand and loyalty, but there's also, as a standpoint, as a person, you're putting a lot of stuff at risk. Once you sign a contract and you say, yes, you can use my likeness.
Yep.
I mean, is there an end? Then anybody can copy that and go from there. So Denmark, actually, I don't know if that legislation went through, but Denmark was working on copyright, allowing people to copyright themselves as a person, have the right to your own likeness, that it's yours to own and that nobody else can use it. And so I think we'll see more of that. So there's the ethical and then the legal part to this. And then it's the human part. Who wants to watch an avatar mumble, and just kind of talk and show no emotion? It's the shows like this where our hands go up in the air and we get closer to the camera and we're talking and we're excited. And, my prediction for 2026 is that more and more people are going to go live, because that's the one thing that AI can't really do yet. Right? You can put an AI, an AI avatar maybe live, but if we're going live, nobody else can really duplicate that. And it's unexpected, and you can do fun things when you go live, and you have people come in and ask questions. And even though you have run a show, it's going to go different because there's people here. So I think live is that last frontier where AI hasn't really entered in yet. And I think that's a lot of people are going to jump on that. And along with that, live shows, as well as more in-person meetings, connections, conferences, retreats. I kind of saw that last year, but I also see that happening this year.
Yeah, I'm all for the more and more of the in-person stuff. I don't know if it's we're still very fatigued from all the Zoom stuff we did during lockdown and during COVID and whatever, but there's nothing like in-person, connections and events and networking and retreats and all that. So I'm all for that. You did mention the AI slop and the incestual creation of content where AI creates the content, we publish it, AI learns from the content, they create new content based on what they learned from what they already created. And so I do hope that does get walked back even more. I don't know what guide rails like the LLMs or the owners of the LLMs or the engineers are putting in place. But talk about kind of what you're seeing from a process standpoint, from content development, and how we can keep it human driven, authentically driven, how we can keep it in line with the traditional creation process, I guess.
Yeah. So what I do for my clients is I want them to be the source of truth. So if you were my client, Steve, I would have a meeting with you. I would have either a Zoom call or a telephone call or share a document. And I want you, your flow, your thinking, your words, your mannerisms. I want to capture that. And from that, whether that's a video or a document, then I take the transcript, say it's a video, I take the transcript and I use that to create AI content. But you are the source of truth. You are the expert. And so every time we go into AI without a source of truth, then that's somebody else's source of truth. So that's why I think it's important. Do you have somebody on your team, if you're watching this, if you're a business owner or an agency, that designates somebody in the company, the expert, right? The knowledge holder who in the company, and that could be many, is really an expert on the topic that you want to educate your audience about. And so start with them, extract from them what they know. Then you can use AI to come up with different ways to bring that different perspectives. But if you have a transcript of a 30-minute conversation, that's going to be really valuable. And that is new information that you're now putting into AI. And of course, the guardrails will be, don't change the tone of voice, use the same language, quote the person who's talking in the transcript. So all of those things. But the people have to be the source of truth. I think that's for content marketing. That's where I'm going with. And if you can't be the source of truth, then really, do you have a business? If you are not the knowledge expert, then what do we have? So the stories that you can tell about why you started your business, what you're doing to grow your business, who you're meeting with in your business, what you're doing at conferences, all of that's uniquely to a human. And if you as a content marketer can extract that, then you're golden. Then use AI to tell the stories.
Yeah, I love that. I've gone the route of training an LLM to interview me based on a topic. I drop into it and it prompts questions and records me. And then I've got transcript for articles, posts, video, etc., like that. So, using the robots on the other side of things. But in your case, let's take the agency. Like, you've got a series of 20 something people who are all experts that you can cycle through. There's no shortage of, SMEs at that agency to take perspective and help you write content, and you can interview them, and now you've got a month's worth of content.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's that if you're doing that, if you're implementing that type of strategy, you're gonna outlast everybody else who are just putting a prompt in and say, write me an article about why TikTok is winning the internet. You're just gonna regurgitate other people's content. But if you know somebody who's on TikTok and is doing really well and had a viral video and did some really cool thing, and you interview them, now you have a much better piece of content. So you really have to go with that. It's the thought leadership, the opinion. When new things come out, new tools come out, ask your expert to say, what's your opinion about this? There you go. Get their opinion, get their 5-minute observation, do a screen share, whatever it is. Then you can use AI to write a comprehensive, well laid out article going deep into that content. And the other thing I want to say is AI LLMs, they want to not have a quick list or quick tips. They want the deep data. They want the deep content. So if you're just kind of topic service writing with AI, that also is not going to work long term. You really want to dive deep into a topic. You want to, the who, what, where, when, why, how, all of that same topic. You want to go deep. If you have data, add the data. The other thing I'm going to tell you is if you're not putting dates at the top of your content and reference like Q1 or 2026 Q1, and if you don't update older data, the LLMs are not going to find it. So that's just an easy thing to do. Just reference the here and the now and the data source if that's really relevant and new, because that's how you get found. That's how they know that your content's good.
Interesting. I didn't realize the date part, but you also said something that I want to dig into. So the LLMs don't want short snippet content. They want to dig into the longer stuff. Why? What's that about? I don't understand.
Yeah.
That
So
part.
if somebody says, for example, what is the best way to become a professional photographer? Right. So that's my question. There's going to be a lot of quick tips, but that's not going to make somebody a professional, so they want a place where they can send somebody to that has all the information a person needs. Gotcha. So they're going to go to trusted sources who has longer form content that answers a lot of the questions, because a source with long form content is now by default the expert, right? I can learn something about quilting, and I could give a short form, hey, the 5 quilting tips I learned because I went to one class, right? But if I'm a lifelong quilter and I'm going to teach somebody how to quilt, I'm going to write a way longer article and get really deep into it. And that's the LLMs know that. So if you just have quick, fast, short little tips in your articles and your articles are short, it's very different than when they're really deep and longer. Then they're going to trust that source because there's more information in there.
All right, that makes a lot more sense. Yeah, as you started to say it, I was like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So what about like organic social and like trends that you're kind of seeing playing out this year in 2026?
Yeah, so organic social, I don't know, as early as 2016, I heard organic social is dead, and I've been an organic specialist for 15 years, so it's not dead. Anything that people post online that does not have money behind it is called organic social. So those TikToks who go viral without a paid ad behind it, it's organic social. There is still a way to get noticed. The biggest thing I think you have to do is you have to be different. Different is better than better. I heard Marcus Sheridan say that. I know you know who that is. I was at Inbound last year. Different is better than better. If you're trying to outbest somebody with your content, it's not going to work. But if everybody in the industry, say it's a button-down lawyer industry, and everybody wears blue suits, and everybody, has their scale in the background and their logo on the images, you're going to get lost in the sea of what everybody else does. But if you're a lawyer and your background is pink and you're hosting a live show and you're talking about the same topic, but people are going to be like, why are you doing that? Why is it pink? This is the experiment we did one time. I was working for a company that was selling products online, and they were very adamant that they kept looking at their competitors. They wanted to do what their competitors were doing. Well, their content, their products were Chrome, right? There's an accessory for a home. And so what we did is we went to Pinterest and put in the name of the product that they were selling. And then we zoomed out, like really out. So there were like 100 pictures of Pinterest on there. You know which ones we clicked on? The ones that were pink or lime green, because every other product was chrome colored, right? With silver. It was like you're in a sea of everybody else. So if you're different, you stand out. So that's where your opportunity lies. And that's hard when you're a content marketer. If you're listening to this and you're a content marketer, you have to have buy-in from your stakeholders to be different, because I have heard it once, I've heard it 100 times. Well, look at what they're doing. We need to do what they're doing because they're having success. Well, if that's your competitor, they're having success because maybe they've been in business for 20 years, or maybe their name is well known. You can't outcompete them because they might be better. But if you're different, and if you know who you serve really well and you can touch on their pain points and you stand for something, then people are going to gravitate to what you do. So don't be afraid to be bold. You don't have to be rude. You don't have to be, just be different. Do something that nobody else in your industry is doing. And another great way to look at that is see in a different industry what's working for them that nobody
Right.
is doing. We do social media audits all the time and say, you're a law firm and everybody else is not on Pinterest, but maybe you have a really cool blog and maybe you think there's an opportunity. Well, the opportunity is maybe you go on Pinterest and start pinning stuff and create boards for people, because then maybe that is where your opportunity is, because everybody else is going right, you go left. And so look for those gaps in content and in opportunity, because if everybody does what everybody else does, you're just going to be in that sea of everybody else. And you've got to be different, and different usually is cheaper. I'm going to tell you that too. Different's usually cheaper, because you got to throw a lot of money out to do that. And organic content is not free. You post it for free, but you have to, invest, you invest in strategy and creating content and writing and all of those things. And then of course you have to do listening and talking and engagement and commenting. But you don't have to put a bunch of money behind it if you do it right. So yeah, oftentimes organic is another great thing, is a great testing ground. If you're a little bit worried about what are people going to think, take your audience along on the journey and say, we're trying something new. We're testing something new. What do you think? Ask their opinions. You get a buy-in from somebody about a pink background, and then you use the pink background. People are going to show up to watch a show with the pink background because now they have a buy-in. They told you it was going to be great, and so they want to be part of that journey. So getting people involved in what you're doing, and organic is great for testing that way.
Very interesting. Very cool kind of way to approach it. And I love the, certainly be different. I think that goes a long way. So super helpful tips on how to be successful in organic. I coach a ton of agencies who say that they just can't be profitable when they do organic for their clients unless it's bundled in with a lot of other services. So the idea of like, here's some tips on how you can do things, not necessarily to increase profitability and delivery, but how you can do it better for yourselves. I think goes a long way as well. So that's great.
Yeah,
Great tips.
I'm going to say this. If you're an agency and you're doing only paid for clients, you're doing them a disservice.
Yeah.
One, because organic is your testing ground. We always start with, what if we starting a new campaign for paid, we go, what was the best performing organic post for this audience? And we start with that. We might adjust it. We might, change the video a little bit or the image, but we know that worked. We know that copy worked. Why would we start over? That's the starting point. So one, that makes creating ads a little bit easier. And then, having the conversations with people is really great. And it builds social proof. Organic builds social proof. If you go and start a campaign and you have a brand new TikTok account or a brand new Facebook page, or you're running ads on LinkedIn, but you're not active, people are going to call your bluff. They're like, I get this ad and I go to the page and there's nothing on it. There's nobody there. It's like a wasteland. It's like having a store, turning on the lights, but having nobody to serve you. So that's what happens when you do paid advertising, but there's nobody to answer the question. So it's really important to have at least, even if it's a light organic strategy, to really boost that paid, because organic boosts paid boosts organic. They really work together really well. And if you're only doing one or the other, it's usually, you're not going to get the results that you really want. So they enhance each other.
Yeah, they've got to go hand in hand. Fully agree. Dorien, I want to shift real quick and throw a couple random rapid fire questions at you to wrap things up today. So the first is, what's a small daily habit that makes a bigger difference in your work than people might expect?
Ooh, at the end of the day, of each day, I write down my to-do list for tomorrow. I don't leave my desk. Yeah, I don't leave my desk until I have an understanding of what my meetings are, what I'm going to work on, and what I have to get done the next day. Because once I write it down, it's out of my head and I can have a good evening with my family.
Oh, I love that. What's a piece of advice that you followed early on in your career that you would not give to somebody starting out today?
That I would not give to somebody. Follow like what everybody else, people say that all the time. Oh, people were surprised how I ran my business. I was a stay-at-home mom. I'd never been in corporate. I didn't know how to run a business, so I did it my way. And that's not the advice that you normally give somebody, but that really worked well for me. So I would say maybe I wouldn't necessarily give that to somebody right now, but it really did work for me. Go your own way. It took me a long way to get where I am, but I'm very happy where I am. So
Yeah.
it was the right choice for me.
Interesting. Very cool. And then finally, what's one way that you've seen agencies misuse AI and one simple shift that makes it genuinely useful instead?
Oh, a lot of people, agencies, people, content creators, marketers, they're still using AI as they were using Google. There's so much that can be done. If you're not using AI as a strategic partner, if you're not using Notebook LLM, for example, LM for, getting images and all kinds of, you put all your data in there and then, you can create slideshows and images and just wonderful things to organize your data and your data and your words. If you haven't used AI for sentiment, like put in a bunch of text and say, what's the sentiment of our customer? If you have phone calls, get those transcripts in there, ask questions and say, what do our customers really say about us? If you're not using it to get answers to really important questions about your customers, you're not really using it right. Use AI and feed it the data that you have and ask it to help you analyze the data. I think that's what a lot of people are missing.
Love that. Yeah, I think it is vital for that. It can't be just a simple Google. It's got to be a strategic partner. All right, Dorien, thank you so much for joining me today. Super grateful for your experience and all that you've been able to share from organic social and AI blunders. Folks, Dorien runs Morin Media, and check out Strategy Talks, her video podcast. I've seen it mostly on LinkedIn. So, Dorien, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Steve. It was awesome.
Thanks again for tuning in to Agency Bytes. If you know someone with expert knowledge on a topic that agency owners would love to hear about, go to agencyoutsight.com/podcast-guest and nominate them.